Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out the radio version of the show every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on WDJY 99.1 in Atlanta. We also air on a podcasting network in Los Angeles called the 405 Media. There's a TV version of the show that airs on KMVT 15 in Silicon Valley at 8 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday nights. Both versions of the show air in other states. For these show times, plus past episodes, please visit the show's website at buildingthefutureshow.com. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Toyin Umesiri. She's the founder and CEO of Nazaru. Toyin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. When we talked kind of a while ago, you kind of have a really interesting background, and then, that kind of really kind of transformed you into kind of what you're doing right now, which I think is really cool and innovative. But maybe before we kind of get into that fun stuff, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yes, so I'm originally from Nigeria in West Africa.
Okay.
And I got my first degree, mathematics and computer science, on the continent. And then in 2004, I arrived in Michigan to pursue my graduate program, so Master's in Information Systems from Central Michigan University. And after I graduated, I went straight into corporate America.
Okay, so before we kind of get into your corporate America job, was there like a defining moment or something in your childhood that kind of made you want to go into mathematics and computer science?
I think it's just a natural flair. I actually wanted to be an architect when I was much younger.
Okay.
And I've always had a flair for, architecture, technology, mathematics, computer science. So it was a natural progression for me. And growing up, I'm number 5 of 6 children, and wow. I come from an upper middle class family, and the lifestyle I had, and the lifestyle was probably equal to an average American here.
Gotcha.
So my family really just gave us exposure and allowed us to dream big and reach for the skies and just go pursue.
Sure. No, I think that's really great. So like you mentioned, you get out of university, you start into corporate America. Walk us through kind of your journey and kind of some career highlights along the way.
Yes. So I joined Whirlpool Corporation in Benton Harbor, Michigan, right out of grad school. And basically it was in the technology space. And the uniqueness of my specialty was SAP, which is a German application. And I grew a career really deploying SAP globally for, global clients. And with Whirlpool, it was, manufacturing systems, procurement system, logistics, finance and controlling. And then in 2013, I joined Walmart. I was hired in to lead their global sourcing implementation in Europe and North America. And I was with Walmart for almost 5 years until a couple of months ago when I resigned to do what I'm doing now.
Sure. So you did some really kind of innovative stuff while you were at Walmart. Do you want to kind of give a quick overview of what that was? Because I think it was really cool and it's worth covering.
Yes, so my personality is I'm quite passionate, and whenever I take on a project, I just take it, beyond the requirement. So for global sourcing, really it exposed me to understand how Walmart buys, what it buys globally, and how it does RFI, RFQ, auctions, the internal processes, the internal systems that are also interconnected, in order to go through the entire supply chain, procurement, logistics, movement of those goods, and also the contracting aspect. And while at Walmart, I was featured as a leading woman in technology alongside the former CIO. At that time, she was the CIO of Walmart.
Very cool.
And I was very yeah, I was very, very active when it came to women leadership and women in STEM and giving back and encouraging young girls to pick a STEM career. And so it was quite, I loved, being at Walmart because it also gave me access to incredible, I mean, the best leaders in the world. The company has been able to attract the best minds in the world, even in Bentonville, Arkansas, at the headquarters. So it really was, in my mind, it was an incubation for the ideas I'm now pursuing with.
Okay, sure. So you move on from Walmart and you founded your own company. What made you decide to leave kind of corporate America and start off on yourself or on your own?
Right. I didn't know I was going to leave. So the real defining point was about 3 years ago. My late father passed, and I had to make an emergency trip to Nigeria.
Okay.
Before then, I hadn't been back in over a decade.
Wow.
So this was a shock to my system.
Sure.
It was a huge shock to my system. But basically, when I went back, I also, because I write, I was also tasked with writing a mini biography about my dad. So I had to interview my mom and a couple of people. And once I went through that process, it just really shook my world to say, wow, what really matters in life is not really how high you go, because my dad did rise through the ranks to the highest level of his career, but it was really the impact he made on his community, on humans. That was what really matters. That was what his legacy was, and that was what people remembered him by.
That's very cool.
And it forced me to think through my own life, because at that point I was working for Fortune 1,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Corporate American. I was living the American dream. So it was kind of like, I thought I was doing everything, go to school,
Sure.
get married, have kids, white picket fence, all of that. So I was living the dream, but my father's passing really made me question what really mattered in life. And at that point, I made a commitment to give back to be of use to my generation, to add value. I didn't know exactly how, but 3 years ago, I made the commitment. And then the last 3 years, I've really just worked on that journey, doing research, and that led me to, focusing on Africa and the conversation that I'm leading now.
Sure. So you have a stat on your LinkedIn profile that to me was really impressive, that according to, like you says, according to Forbes, Africa is home to 3 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world and has the fastest growing middle class. I had no idea that was the case. So walk me through kind of what you guys do at Nazaru and kind of why you decided to start it up.
Right. So over the last 3 years, I've actually engaged global leaders on this conversation. And
Okay.
based on the feedback and questions or interactions we've had, all of that is informing how I'm going about solving this.
Got you.
So basically, one of the things I discovered was people do not know
Sure.
the commercial side of Africa.
Sure.
The imagery, like if by default, everybody feels the region is a region of war, famine, and disease.
Okay.
That when you say Africa, that's the image that comes to people's mind, because that's the only stories you will find in mainstream media.
Got you.
And what people have to, I think people have to question that narrative, that 1 billion people cannot all be at war, cannot be, fighting disease. Like, Africa is home to 1/4 of the number of countries in the world.
Wow.
Like, people have to, there's some things we want to put out there that would force people to take a different approach to their view on Africa.
Sure.
It's 1/4 of the number of countries. However, U.S. only does 2% of its global trade with the entire continent of Africa.
Wow. Interesting.
So the right. So the rest of the world benefits the remaining 98%.
Sure.
But even from that 2%, most of it is extractive resources like oil.
Okay.
There is really no true global trade when it comes to advanced manufacturing coming at the levels possible. So those are conversations we want to have. But what I found is at the to lay a solid foundation, there's an awareness that we have to create.
Got you.
And we also, my focus is to strictly talk about commercial side of Africa, because the scale is tilted towards all the other negative press, single narrative around the region. And then what I tell people is, imagine if all people knew about Bentonville was the poor side of Bentonville, nobody would come.
Got you. Okay.
Right. If all I saw about the U.S. was all that was wrong with the U.S., I wouldn't be here.
Sure.
So those are some of the conversations we want to have. And we also want to tell the stories of people that are actively engaged and the innovation that is happening, the partnerships that are being built. China is benefiting from this. Europe is aggressively, after British exit, they're aggressively forming new partnerships with the region. I think on the U.S. side, we just have more work to do. Got you.
Sure. No, I think that's great. And you're doing a big event right away, and I really want to cover that. But you offer kind of a bunch of services at Nazaru.com. What exactly do you guys kind of provide with that company?
Yes. So we have various stakeholders.
Okay.
So when we think about our stakeholders on the continent of Africa, their number one need is visibility, because people do not know they exist. People do not think of the business community on the continent, the business executives on the continent of Africa that are closing deals. So we want to showcase who they are. We also want to showcase, part of what we do, we've also created a database of Africa's exporters, because if you think about what Alibaba has done for China, it's provided a digital platform where you can now find people. Before Alibaba, you had to know somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody before you could trade with China. So we are trying to actively work in creating a database, so you don't have to figure out, how do you navigate 54 countries on the continent. So for our stakeholders on the continent, those are the things we provide. But for the stakeholders that are here in the U.S., for businesses that want to export into the region or expand into Africa, we provide consulting services, knowledge base. I'm also working on a strategic partnership where we're going to be providing analytics, real data on the continent, on the region, to clients in America that really want to deep dive and understand how to play on the continent. There are 54 countries, and depending on what goods or services or the short or long-term strategy, we would make certain recommendations to our US clients. So one of the things I try to say is manufacturing is shifting to Africa, especially East Africa. Sooner or later, it's going to start impacting U.S. businesses. Whether it's a reality that's going to happen, we just want to help them prepare, and we feel it's the right time to develop an effective strategy towards Africa.
Sure. No, I think that's really great. Like the business matchmaking kind of stuff, and the education and the mentorship that you're doing for kind of women-owned businesses, I think is really interesting. So do you maybe want to kind of cover that a little bit as well?
Yes, absolutely. Women, when it comes to agriculture on the continent, when it comes to trade on the continent, women can never be excluded. They can never be excluded from the conversation. And for every dollar that goes into the hand of a woman, the statistics is even more impactful on the continent of Africa than even in the U.S. That dollar goes directly into school, putting their children in school, putting food on the table. So impacting women and giving them the resources they need is very, very critical. Just last Friday, I was giving a keynote speech at Washington University in St. Louis. And what occurred to me because of the questions that was coming from the attendees was that nobody, not many people are actually mentoring or feeding this ecosystem of African entrepreneurs, women in Africa. Nobody's addressing their needs.
Got you.
And there's a billion there's a billion out there that the expertise we have, all of the skills I've developed, developing global strategies and supply chain strategies for the world's largest retailer, I've now found a place that desperately needs it.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think that's really great. So walk me through your up and coming event, like Trade with Africa, businesssummit.com. How did the Trade with Africa Business Summit kind of come to be, and why did you decide to create it?
Yes, so I speak outside of Arkansas
Sure.
when it comes to Africa. And through the last 3 years of talking to global leaders, I realized that the various stakeholders were not on the same page.
Okay.
Be it African policy leaders, U.S. policy leaders, African business community, U.S. business community. They are not on the same page. So, for example, the policymakers on the African continent, the politicians, over the last 20 years, because they do not understand the way the U.S. is set up,
okay,
they've only built relationships in Washington, D.C.
Gotcha.
So they would talk about, we want trade, we don't want aid, but the only thing Washington, D.C. can give you is foreign aid and favorable policies, because that's the political seat of America.
Got you.
So it's only rhetoric at this point, because what I'm now trying to do is point them in this direction. And when I say this direction, we're hosting the event in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is the headquarters of Walmart.
Right.
This is a strategic global trade hub.
Right. Interesting.
Everything they need. This is the place they should be building trade partnership. If what they want is trade, this community solves for Latin America. This community solves for China, for India. This community knows everything it takes to move goods from point A to point B. When it comes to supply chain, logistics, everything is right here. We also have Tyson Foods, which is one of the leading agricultural companies in the U.S., in the world. I would even say $40 billion.
Wow.
The former CEO is one of our speakers. So on the African policy side, providing them education to say, if you're looking for trade, Washington, D.C., you have to build strategic partnership with corporate America.
Got you.
Right?
Sure.
Like they've been going to Washington, D.C., and they've had favorable over the last 20 years. Clinton, Bush 1 and Bush 2 and Obama has been favorable, but at best they would keep giving you foreign aid, and foreign aid is not what would grow the economy. So
Sure.
This event is strategically positioned that way. Also, we have over 30 speakers, and these are the most brilliant minds that are solving when it comes to technology, sustainable agriculture, women empowerment, education, health. I can give you, I can tell you more about
Sure.
a few of the speakers.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes. So in coming out from Silicon Valley is who I would consider the PayPal of Africa. He runs a company called Flutterwave.
Okay.
He's a serial entrepreneur. His previous company, the CEO of Facebook, invested $24 million in a Nigerian startup. He exited that to start Flutterwave, and is connecting 30 African countries on digital payments. Uber's expansion in Africa he uses his platform to process payments, and he processes millions of dollars,
Wow.
Every month. Like, those are stories we want to talk about, to say real innovation is happening. M-Pesa in Kenya is leading when it comes to mobile payments in the world.
Wow.
Because millions of people were taken from the unbanked, millions of them leapfrogged, they skipped the banks and went straight to mobile money payments. So we want to highlight these types of stories, that innovation is happening on the continent. People are not just talking about it.
No, I think that's really great. So I'm curious though to get your take on a couple of things. You mentioned the mobile payment space, and I think, and you kind of touched on it for a second, but I think I want to highlight a point here that I think is kind of a little bit off topic for a second, and we'll pull it back. But you mentioned something like they skipped the banks and kind of just went to kind of mobile payment. Why is like something that, because like I think obviously mobile payments are happening in North America, right? Like it's happening, but it's not getting adopted as fast as it's getting adopted in somewhere like Africa. Why do you think something or a country or continent like Africa is allowed to just kind of adopt some of this new technology a lot faster than maybe kind of North America or other parts of the world?
It's very, very easy. There are several points, but it's very simple. When there's been when you have people that have been excluded from goods and services,
sure,
and you provide them goods and services, they're going to soak it all in because the hunger is built up.
Okay.
But if you have in the U.S. market, you like, what would you be offering somebody that already has a bank that has mobile pay? Like, what would you be offering me that my bank that is so huge that I will have to walk away from my bank?
Sure. Yeah,
whereas, for example, our keynote speaker Scott Ford, he exports coffee. 20% of Rwandans, they're in the coffee business, and he's invested over $100 million straight into the hands of the farmers. The farmer in rural Rwanda, they are being paid on their mobile phone because there are no banks. There are no banks, right?
Sure.
So with their, but their cell phone penetration is increasing. So cell phone all of a sudden gives them access to so many things that they've been excluded from for so long. There are no banks in the farm, but they can look at their phone and they can get a credit and say, oh, now I have money. And even in Kenya now, the joke is if you're seeing people on the street, they're buying bananas, oranges, and you just see them on their phone. They're paying for banana with their cell phone.
No, that's cool though.
Yes, it's very, and even when it comes to retail, there's a lot of leapfrogging also happening. Things are happening when it comes to e-commerce, and American businesses are missing this opportunity. It's going to be too late if 5-10 years from now you're saying Africa, we would have already won. We would have owned the market before if people don't pay attention to this.
Sure. No, I think that's really great. So you've kind of covered it throughout the show so far, but I really want to kind of bring the point home. Who should kind of attend your business summit?
So whoever wants to export goods and services to the continent, I mean, with all the trade conversation that's happening, North America, Canada, China, there's a whole lot of conversations happening in global trade right now.
Okay.
This is a great opportunity for business leaders to start exploring new markets.
Okay.
That is projected to grow, that right now they don't know anything about.
Sure.
For the most part. So first of all, it's that for those people that are already engaged, this is an opportunity to start building strategic relationships with people on ground that are flying in. You don't have to go there to start making strong connections. For people that also want to import from the region, one of the speakers is the export promotion leader for one of actually the largest economy on the continent. Wow. He's going to be here. This is a good time to start understanding what the landscape looks like. The region, the region produces probably the largest amount of cashew in the world.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Interesting.
No, but people don't give it credit because it is exported raw out of West Africa directly into Southeast Asia. It is
Oh,
processed there and then imported into the US. So
interesting.
you probably be eating cashew grown in West Africa and not know it.
Interesting.
So, so what the region is now asking for is people to invest in manufacturing, and people are doing that, but they need it in increasing number. I can also give you another example.
Sure.
In Rwanda, Donny Smith, the former CEO of Tyson Foods, went there, and the Minister of Agriculture said, Donny, what we need is a commercial feed mill
Okay.
because we're importing all the feed for our livestock in the entire country of Rwanda. We're importing everything. And he built the first commercial feed mill. And guess what? After he built that, two other people have built two more because they now see the commercial side of it. The people of Rwanda weren't asking for charity. They already had their funds that they wanted to use to buy this feed for their livestock. They were just susceptible to currency fluctuation. So there are some strategic things that are happening that it makes sense to start targeting an existing market that is underserved.
Sure. No, that's interesting. So I'm curious. You kind of mentioned it like a few times, like where like aid compared to actually kind of maybe setting up a business or investing. Like is it? And correct me if I'm wrong. Is it like not saying aid isn't welcome in certain situations in any part of the world at certain points, but that's kind of just like a short-term solution where if I myself invest or build something like a manufacturing plant, that's like a long-term solution. Is that kind of a accurate way of putting it?
So I'm going to kind of break some bubbles here.
No, I think it's good. That's why I asked the question.
Here's what a lot of the leaders in Africa doesn't realize.
Okay.
For the most part, when you bundle aid is achieving two things. It's aid, but it's growing the American economy because the conditions tied to most of that package is that an American company is the one to execute those projects.
Got you.
Okay?
Okay.
So if US says I'm going to give you $50 million,
okay,
a given percentage, the way I understand it, a given percent, it's going to grow export. There are some things here that is locked into growing the export for the US, which is fantastic, right? We need that.
Sure.
We need that. But what we need something that is equally growing and giving opportunities for African exporters.
Sure. So both countries win. Is that fair to say?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So there's it's quite complex. There's also a fresh topic that is just I'm still processing it because I'm trying to understand what the US is how they want to handle this. But there's an existing policy called AGOA, which is Africa Growth Opportunity Act. It allows you to import certain commodity items from Africa into the US duty free.
Interesting.
But on the continent, some of the leaders, Rwanda specifically now, they're trying to ban importation of fairly used clothing from the US because they want to grow their own textile manufacturing. But just this weekend, I'm seeing that the US is responding and trying to retaliate that. And I'm going, why? So those are some of the conversations that is missing, like mainstream media is not talking about it, but I'm watching and listening and saying, okay, how do we provide visibility and also help the American side to say, listen to the aspirations and the ambitions of the African people.
Gotcha.
They want to grow their economy. And China comes into Africa with, we will help you do whatever you want to do. We will write you the check. We will build you the road. We will do, like China comes in to the region with a different approach.
Interesting.
And that's why they are winning.
Right.
If you go to different parts of the region, they're the ones building the airports, the Chinese firms building the roads. They're using, on and on and on, on and on and on. But I feel like our stakeholders on the US side, there's opportunity, real opportunity for them to rethink their approach towards Africa.
Interesting. So I know you've kind of mentioned it throughout our conversation, but is there specific kind of maybe business verticals that maybe people don't realize they could either maybe import or export things to and from Africa that maybe we haven't heard of? Like your cashew example was kind of a good one. Some of the textile stuff you're talking about, but is there any other kind of verticals just to maybe get people thinking that are like, I had no idea that was possible either as an import or an export?
Yes, one of the biggest ones, and Arkansas is quite a leading state in that space, is agriculture. So
Okay.
while China is heavy on infrastructure, the U.S. companies, they have a unique opportunity to export expertise, equipment, seeds, all of these things that China is not playing in this space. China is not helping Africa grow food.
Okay.
but the state of Arkansas, is an agricultural state, and this event also is giving them the opportunity to start building partnership. That's very key people that are already engaged with the event. So that's something you want to capture.
Sure.
The other thing is supply chain, logistics, packaging, branding, all of that. Whatever it takes to move goods or food from the farm to the shelf.
Okay.
All of those value chains, all key players in that value chain, Africa is open to them. When it comes to packaging, shipping, Maersk is one. They're also going to be at key players are showing up to this event because volume. My goal is to increase the volume that is being traded for the benefit of both regions. I know it's not going to happen overnight,
Sure.
but I'm focused on this. I'm going to focus on this for the next couple of years. So this is a conversation we all want to learn from. And also, even the diaspora, the African diaspora community, this is an opportunity for them to give back and also to learn new business opportunities that they've not even tapped into before.
Sure.
Agriculture is quite huge. Technology, when you talk about blockchain,
Yeah.
there are people solving blockchain for Africa right now.
Interesting.
Because it's easier to provide that and solve real problems on the continent. Part of my job before, I was part of the technology strategy team that we were looking into the future of retail, right?
Sure.
5 years, 6 years, 10 years down, where is retail going, and then where is technology going, and which technology should we be adopting?
Okay.
So I did that for the largest retailer, right? So I'm able to do the same for Africa.
Interesting.
To say the future of technology, how do you leapfrog into, Africa is a fantastic spot to take all of this. IRVR, people are using it already for weddings. Africans are very into weddings and parties and all of that. And there are already IRVR solutions to say, what's your wedding in 3D?
Sure. No, interesting. Okay, cool. I think that's really great. So for people that maybe either attend the summit or maybe that can't attend the summit, how could they potentially work with yourself to maybe, say I'm an investor and I want to actually, maybe import or export something, how would you work with me to actually make that happen? Because to be fair, I've never exported or imported anything from Africa. So how would I kind of reach out to you and how would we work together to kind of make that happen?
Right. I think it depends. For one, the easiest one is you want to be a passive investor. At
Okay.
that point, we will take it on.
Okay.
And we will just move along the chain we're already creating. If it's more of a consulting, you want me to help you establish this, then that's a different conversation, because we then want to pick product lines. We want to look at the U.S. market, like sesame seeds, cashew, moringa, teas, hibiscus flower. We want to look at already. These are things that are already being consumed, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And we're saying Africa, we could change the supply chain and reroute it in a cheaper way to the U.S. The other thing that people are also not paying attention to, the most recent movie, Black Panther.
Yeah.
That movie was centered around Africa, but people did not realize we missed an opportunity where it increased the demand for authentic African masks, products, apparel, but the supply chain has not been built. People did not know where to go for those items.
Interesting.
So before the movie even came out, there were conversations I was having to say, there's word on the street. People are now, just like Superman, right? Merchandise around Superman. Well, we failed to capture that. The movie now has grossed $1 billion. Imagine if we had created products, authentic products, because the current product I'm seeing is actually coming from China.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But that was a miss. So, but we will capture that. We will capture that to say apparel, authentic African apparel, authentic African masks, carvings. These are all things that already exist today that goes into Europe and other parts of the world, but not US.
Interesting. No, this is actually quite fascinating to me. So, is there anything else that people need to consider? Maybe again, kind of importing or exporting. That we haven't talked about that maybe is an issue that maybe they need to kind of deal with, that somebody like yourself can help with?
Yes, I think people need to get a little bit more curious around Africa. There are McKinsey reports, and they need to educate them. Like, we cannot, especially on this topic, we cannot allow the media. I know you're in the media, but we cannot.
No, I 100% agree.
Right, we cannot wait for media to educate us about anything. Like, business executives cannot sit back and wait for media to inform them about what's happening in the world. You want to go to McKinsey, Forbes. McKinsey has an extensive report about the growth projection for Africa. By 2050, Africa would have about a quarter of the number of population in the world, while the rest of the world, the Western world, is declining in population and is aging.
Sure.
Africa is on the rise. In 1980, there was just about 500 million people on the continent of Africa. Just under 40 years after, it is now 1.1 billion people.
Wow.
It doubled. It is now projected that by 2050, that would double again to 2 billion.
Wow.
By 2050, Nigeria is projected to be the third largest populated country next to China and India in the world. Right now, Nigeria has 180 million people, which is about half the population of the US. So by 2050, the projection is that country would surpass the US in population. So there are two things. Some things concern me, some things excites me. The ones that concern me and also we need support in that space is if you have countries that currently have food insecurity, maybe 20 to 30% of the population currently has food insecurity. If that number doubles again, it's going to be a disaster, right?
Sure.
So we want people in the agriculture space especially to please pay attention. This is not charity. These are commercial opportunities on the continent of Africa. The policy leaders, business leaders, they need support, expertise, partnership, but they want to be treated as equal.
Sure.
So not subservient. So that gives me concern to say, if we know the region is going to double and there are regions already with food insecurity, what are we doing to make sure we're providing affordable, sustainable food solutions in Africa? What excites me is the fact that people don't think about Africa as consumers of products.
Okay.
Well, the laptops, the iPhones, all of that is going into Africa. There's a huge demand. China is flooding the market with cheap products. But the U.S. manufacturers, they are looked to for high quality, high end, and that's the place to play.
Gotcha.
You don't want to play low price. You're not going to win in that space. And one of my speakers already is connecting African consumers to over 200 UK and US websites. Because if you're in Kenya and you go to a website.com, I'm not going to mention names,
Sure.
they're going to decline your card. They will tell you they don't ship to Kenya. But this person is actually already solving and say, I will handle the logistics, I will handle the payments, because these are consumers we should be serving. So
Sure.
So we're also going to be building data, big data around all of this. So business leaders can start seeing real business relevant data, not the noise of that we see out there, but actionable data that will really help people to digest and see which of the 54 would help grow their businesses and what partnerships exist.
No, I think that's really great. And it's actually really quite fascinating to me, even just kind of personally, about kind of everything we've kind of talked about so far. But I'm curious to know, is there anything that maybe people should be a little bit like weary of or to look out for, so nothing kind of goes sideways when they're actually looking to either import or export?
So with every business, the same due diligence that any business executives would execute if they're doing business here in the US,
Sure.
even much more is required.
Okay.
Right? When you're doing business with a new territory that you're not familiar with.
Sure.
So we cannot skip. This is not a call to, hey, Africa. No, it's risk. In fact, one of the things we're also working on is to look at the 54 or 55 countries and map them on a risk-reward plane, where we say this country has a high risk, high reward,
Okay.
high risk, low reward, or low risk, high reward, low risk, low reward.
Gotcha.
Because as business leaders, we want to be presented with everything, all the information before we make a call, right?
Sure.
So I'm not saying, oh, Rosie, come, come to Africa. No, it's a real business environment. Just like if you're playing on Wall Street,
Sure.
you have to assess your risks. You have to look at where you're putting your funds. You have to do due diligence. You have to look at all the analytics, projections. You look at the trend. These are all the same business practices that we want to apply to Africa. We do not want to skip any of those steps. We absolutely have to do due diligence here.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So for people that are actually looking to attend the business summit, is there anything that they need to kind of know? I know you have a plan your trip kind of section on the website, but is there anything that people need to either potentially bring or come with, or just kind of, is there any advice you'd have if they're going to actually come to the event?
Come with an open mind, because come with an open mind, because you're going to be blown away with all of the information that you're going to absorb. The partnerships, relationships that you will be built. I mean, on Friday when I was speaking, I actually shared the platform with Wale Adeosun, who was on President Obama's advisory council on doing business with Africa.
Wow.
He manages a fund of upward of $800 million focused on Africa. So we have a community, even Chris, you have people now that have been raising funds into the billions that they are just looking to focus and solve for Africa. You never know who would be in the room. I used to work at Walmart. We're having this, few minutes from the headquarters. I'm grateful that Walmart is one of our sponsors for the event. So this is a big conversation. So we welcome everybody. There's really nothing special. We have the when it comes to how to register, there's nothing special there. We have the speaker profile available on the event website. We have our tentative agenda already published, so people can because I sometimes I say this event is not for everybody. So I want people to really get their heads around what topics will be covered. But beyond that, it's going to be a fantastic networking opportunity. We have representatives like the Trade Commissioner for South Africa, the Honorary Consul for Nigeria, the Consul General for Nigeria, Atlanta. He's going to be there. We have various representatives. And the reason this conversation is being led by business leaders, but we also have policymakers in the room because we want them to help us remove barriers to trade.
Sure.
Okay. So if we are saying this is what we're trying to do, but these are the barriers, we want them to take it back home to say, we see the energy, we see the excitement, we see the interest, we see what people are doing, but we also want them to help us address and remove barriers going forward in order to keep this dialogue going. So we welcome everybody around the world. We have people coming from Kenya, Congo. So this is a global event, and I'm just hoping that it's the beginning of much more. It's just a couple of days, but the real work has already started, and the real work, continues even after the event. This is not just a conversation, let's talk and feel good. This is actionable dialogue, real relationships, real partnerships, learning from people like Scott Ford, whose work in Rwanda has been credited for increasing the GDP of Rwanda by 1%.
Wow, that's huge.
His investment is massive. So people should check out westrockcoffee.com. You should buy that because it awesome. Creates jobs, real jobs for the rural farmers in Rwanda. So he successfully created a transparent supply chain that you can actually know where the coffee is coming from. Sure. And I love what he's doing. He's going to be sharing the story of why he's doing what he's doing. Also, Dale Dawson, he used to be a vice president of Stevens Banks in Little Rock, Arkansas. He actually runs microfinance bank in Rwanda as well.
Wow.
So, yes. So these are incredible people changing the world. And what I've done is just create a platform for us to laser focus on those type of dialogues.
That's great. So we're coming to the end of the show. So let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about, the summit, Nazaru, and any other links you want to mention?
Yes. So for Nazaru, it's www.nazaru.com. Again, Nazaru. And for the summit, it's www.tradewithafricabusinesssummit.com. Again, tradewithafricabusinesssummit.com. And if they just Google my name, Toyin Umesiri, there's a ton of articles, ton of information that will lead them directly to this site as well.
Sure.
I'm super excited, and I look forward to seeing as many people that can make it to Bentonville, Arkansas.
Sure. That's May 10th and 11th.
May 10th and 11th is the event. The evening of the 9th, we're having a by invitation only reception for speakers and sponsors. So we also, if brands want to be a part of this and get in front of this global audience, we welcome them. We have sponsorship packages as well.
Perfect. Well, Toyin, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening. Please visit the show's website at buildingthefutureshow.com. Also check us out on Facebook at Building the Future Show and follow us on Twitter at Building Show. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.